Dr. Andrew here, and today I'd like to talk about my top 5 supplements for staying healthy and sick free, especially in relation to the new normal and COVID 19. The information here is taken from my book, New Health for the New Normal, A Guide to Staying Healthy and Sick Free Beyond 2020. And my top 5 supplements are vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, Wellmune, and colloidal silver. And I'll be talking about them one by one in detail, starting with vitamin D. And vitamin D is very important because there is a connection between being deficient in vitamin D and testing positive for COVID 19. In fact, if I go to my book, to the section on tuning up and boosting your immune system, researchers have found a direct link between a deficiency in vitamin D and the risk of not only being infected with the coronavirus, but also of getting a severe infection. Its role during the new normal seems to be more important by the day. And a recent study has shown that the risk of testing positive for the coronavirus was nearly 2 times greater for patients who were known to be deficient in vitamin D before being tested. In other words, there seems to be a strong connection between being deficient in vitamin D and testing positive for COVID 19. Also, researchers from the Philippines found that critical cases of COVID 19 patients were 19 times more likely in those with vitamin D deficiency. So, in other words, people who are deficient in vitamin D have a higher chance of getting the coronavirus and also developing a severe infection of coronavirus. So that's very important to keep in mind. And I also want to talk about ultraviolet light, which, of course, is what sunlight is made of, and our bodies are able to produce our own vitamin D as long as we get direct exposure to sunlight. And of course, vitamin D is also known as the sunshine vitamin because of this. Now, sunlight contains 2 forms of radiant energy. You have ultraviolet A or UVA and ultraviolet B or UVB. It's the UVB energy that your skin needs to make vitamin D. And this is the most important thing to know about this is that it's not very effective to get sunlight through glass windows for health purposes. Glass has been made to completely absorb UVB light and only allowing ultraviolet A light to pass through. So not only are you not producing vitamin D, even if you're being exposed to sunlight through a window, you're also exposing yourself unnecessarily to ultraviolet A, which contributes to skin damage and premature aging. So, very important to know, it's always best to get direct sunlight. So, go outside and get under the sun rather than just staying by the window because the glass windows filter out the important UVB light. All right. Uh, in my book, I mentioned that my family is blessed because even though we live in a condominium unit high up, we can always go down, and by the side of our building is a small garden area where not much people pass through, not much people stay there, and we usually have the whole place to ourselves in the morning. And we really enjoy getting sunlight. Of course, it's middle of November right now, and we're having a lot of typhoons coming in, and it's the peak of the rainy season. So don't really get much sunlight right now, but as much as we can and whenever possible, we do go down. And this is my son, and he loves to look for bugs whenever we go down. That's how I sort of motivate him to go down and get some sunlight. So it's a good bonding moment also for my family. The next would be vitamin C, and of course, it's a very popular and very common supplement. You can go to your nearest drugstore and get some vitamin C if you want. Of course, there are different kinds of vitamin C. Some are better than the others. But for vitamin C, they found that during an infection, vitamin C levels in the blood can become depleted, and a person's requirement for vitamin C increases with the severity of the infection. High doses of vitamin C has been successfully used in the past to treat many viral infections such as polio, diphtheria, herpes zoster, herpes simplex, chickenpox, influenza, measles, mumps, and viral pneumonia. And as of now, I think they are coming out with studies which show clinically that vitamin C is also effective in treating COVID-19. So I believe a few months ago they started these studies, and they needed a few months to come out with the results. But even for me personally, whenever I feel the beginning of an itchy throat or sore throat, which could lead to cough and to colds later on, I I make it a point to start mega dosing vitamin C. And I do that using a powdered form of vitamin C, which is a lot easier to use. It's not necessarily better to use a powder compared to capsules, but if you want to mega dose, then that would be the easier way rather than swallowing like several capsules of vitamin C at once. And there is a right way and a not so ideal way of taking vitamin C. The right way of taking vitamin C is by taking it by itself and not with anything else. No food, no supplements within 1 hour of taking vitamin C, especially if you're mega dosing. So what I do is first thing in the morning, right when I wake up and get out of bed, I take vitamin C in a cup of warm water, and I wait at the very least, 45 minutes, but preferably 1 hour before I eat or I take anything else, any other supplements. Especially if any one of you are taking medication or maintenance pharmaceutical drugs, then the best way of taking vitamin C is 1 hour before you take the pharmaceutical drugs or your maintenance medication. All right. So, mega doses of good quality vitamin C can help kick symptoms of a cold or a cough in a matter of hours, which is very true for me. A few studies have shown that vitamin deficiency is related to the increased risk and severity of flu infections. So, you can also carry that over to coronavirus infections because it's also a very similar kind of infection. Next would be zinc, and a person with zinc deficiency is more susceptible to disease and infection. In fact, the WHO, the World Health Organization, has said that zinc deficiency in children 5 years old or less may be responsible for 13% of all lower respiratory tract infections, most often pneumonia and the flu. Zinc deficiency is also common in the elderly, and this is why researchers believe many of the elderly who get coronavirus are very susceptible to developing severe COVID-19 infections because the older you get, the more deficient you are in zinc. So it's very important to also take zinc supplements. Zinc helps boost the production of antibodies, which, as we know, is one of the key factors in developing immunity to COVID 19 or to any kind of viral infection. But more importantly, it also helps activate the production of T cells. Now, if you follow me and you follow the videos that I come out with, uh, in one of the videos, I talk about the importance of T cell immunity compared to antibody immunity when it comes to COVID 19. Because researchers have found that those who have gotten COVID 19 infections in the past should have developed antibodies in their blood, but when they checked their blood, a big percentage of them did not have these antibodies. So these were only antibodies were only found in about 10 to 15% of the blood samples of those who had COVID 19. Also, those who had COVID 19, such as a severe COVID 19 infection, and recovered from it, even though they produced antibodies in their blood, a lot of them uh, no longer had antibodies within 3 to 4 months after recovering from the severe COVID 19 infection. So scientists were baffled by, or they were not sure why this was happening. And to make the long story short, they found that there's another side of our immunity aside from antibodies, which is our T cell immunity. So, in T cell immunity, we have these cells, immune cells called T cells, which actively search for cells that are already infected with COVID 19. And those are the cells that they destroy. And apparently, based on recent research, T cell immunity is more important. And people develop more T cells than antibodies in dealing with COVID 19 or coronavirus infections in general. So, I would encourage you to check out that video of mine. I will put a link to that in this video and also in the description, so that you will be more informed about it also. So, zinc helps activate the production of T cells, which is very important. Finally, higher levels of zinc in cells not only help block viruses from entering, it also stops the virus from replicating. And they have found this in the original SARS virus, which is way back in 2002, 2003, SARS CoV. And of course, we know that COVID 19 is scientifically called SARS CoV 2. So when we talk about original SARS, that was the first SARS infection back in 2002, 2003. All right. So number four would be Wellmune. Uh, Before that, in general, there's this group of supplements called beta-glucans, which are basically sugars that you can find in the cell walls of bacteria, fungi, yeasts, algae, lichens, and plants such as oats and barley. And I want to focus on yeast beta glucans. So, yeast beta glucans have been clinically shown to enhance immune function without overstimulating the immune system. So, this is very important because a lot of supplements that claim to stimulate the immune system carry the risk, even though they're natural supplements, they carry the risk of overstimulating the immune system. And that's not ideal because, especially if a person is susceptible to autoimmune diseases, you don't want to overstimulate your immune cells because in some people, these immune cells, when they're too active in searching for foreign invaders, they may actually attack our own healthy cells, and that's why you call it an autoimmune disorder. So auto means self, so it's attacking your own cells, which are not necessarily unhealthy. Okay, and that causes a lot of problems. So beta glucans have been clinically shown to enhance immune function without doing that, without causing autoimmune disorders or overstimulating the immune system. Yeast beta glucans are classified as immune modulators, and that means they help enhance your immune system and make your immune cells smarter and more efficient in searching for invaders and destroying them. So, to give you an example, normally when a virus enters the body, it sort of hides itself in a layer of fat. And another example, cancer cells would hide themselves in a layer of protein in the body. So, normally, even if our immune system is healthy and functioning properly, immune cells may not necessarily recognize the foreign invaders or the cancer cells. But immune modulators enhance them and make them smarter and more efficient so that they can easily recognize these foreign invaders and cancer cells and start to destroy them. And so that's why, in fact, there's a lot of scientific research being done on beta glucans and their potential, even in treating cancer. So now I'm basing this on clinical research, not just not just like a claim made for any kind of supplement that they usually do. This is backed by a lot of clinical research, and I don't have the references here in these slides, but I do have them in my book. So if you're interested, you can get a copy of my book, and you will see every single thing that I talk about, which you know has a claim. I include those in the references. Right. Wellmune is a proprietary form of yeast beta glucan. So it's a brand name for a kind of beta glucans that is manufactured in the USA, and in my opinion is the best kind of beta glucan that you can find out there. Personally, I've been taking Wellmune since the Ebola outbreak in 2014. That's when I started doing research, especially on immune system immune health, and boosting the immune system. So for more than 6 years now, I haven't had a single severe cough, cold, or flu. So, and I intend to keep that track record going. Wellmune is the only type of beta glucan backed by several clinical studies, which I mentioned, which show that taking it significantly increases the number of killer T cells circulating in the blood. So, again, just like I mentioned for zinc, Wellmune has also been clinically shown to increase the production of T cells circulating in our bloodstream. And they're called killer T cells because, as I mentioned, they go around our bloodstream and our system looking for cells which have already been infected, let's say with the coronavirus, and they destroy the cells. So that's why you call them killer T cells. And again, T cell immunity is, in fact, more important than antibody immunity, especially for coronaviruses and COVID 19. So, Wellmune is one of the top supplements that I personally take. Not only that, but Wellmune has also been found to reduce upper respiratory symptoms from viral infections, which to me is very interesting considering that this is where the symptoms of COVID 19 first begin to develop. So, in the upper respiratory tract. All right. So, finally, number five would be colloidal silver. And it has been known that silver has very powerful antiviral and antibacterial properties. Excuse me. Colloidal silver is simply a solution of water and silver particles suspended in it. It's what you call a colloid, and you have all these silver particles suspended, and they don't settle down in the bottom. So that's why they're active. And the smaller the silver particles in the colloid, the more effective it is in destroying microbes and the safer it is to ingest because it becomes easily absorbed and excreted out of our system. So for colloidal silver, there's so much colloidal silver products out there today. It's so common now that you can even make some in your own home. If you had silver wires, make sure it's 99.999% pure and a 9-volt battery. And you connect those two wires to the battery and you put it in a cup or a glass jar with distilled water in it and leave it for several hours. You're going to create your own batch of colloidal silver solution. The thing is that that's a very crude batch of colloidal silver, and you're actually producing particles which are larger than you want because the larger the particles, the less effective they are in destroying microbes. And the more likely it is that your body won't be able to excrete the silver particles when you ingest it. So you want the smallest kind of silver particle in a solution as possible. So that's why I do produce my own colloidal silver now and then, but I use it for topical application. It's so even though you have large particles of colloidal silver, you can still use it for as a topical sanitizer, for example, or for spraying surfaces, and it's very natural. But for ingesting it, I prefer buying the best kind of colloidal silver that I can find and making sure that the particles are as small as possible. So I also talk about that more in detail in my book. So yeah, over here. So talk about silver hydrosol or colloidal silver. So anyway, going back, so you have colloidal silver, which is abbreviated as CS, and you have Silversol, which is sort of like the newest kind of colloidal silver you can find today. Silversol is short for silver hydrosol. It's a different process of making it compared to colloidal silver. And Silversol for me is actually more effective today. So you can get Silversol solutions rather than colloidal silver, and I prefer using Silversol, especially for ingesting orally. And in my book, I also talk about oral ingestion versus nebulizing. So traditionally, we take colloidal silver orally, let's say 1 teaspoon taken under the tongue, and you leave it there for 30 seconds to 1 minute to make sure that your sublinguals absorb the colloidal silver and send signals to your entire body before you swallow it. And that is the traditional way of taking colloidal silver. But we found that if you nebulize colloidal silver or silver salt, if you put it in a nebulizing cup and you nebulize it and inhale it in your lungs, what the nebulizer does is it aerosolizes the colloidal silver so that you can inhale it, and it saturates your entire lungs and respiratory tract with silver particles, so that if you do have some viral particles present in the lungs, it can be directly exposed to the silver particles. So I have found that nebulizing is more effective than taking colloidal silver orally, especially when it comes to preventing respiratory tract infections. And so, especially during the height of the pandemic, whenever I would go out and be in places where there are a lot of people, when I get back home, one of the first things I do after changing and cleaning up is nebulizing with Silversol, and that helps really prevent any kind of respiratory tract infections. And it also allows the colloidal silver to bypass the digestive system and go straight to the blood through the lungs. So it's more effective in allowing your system to absorb the silver particles. All right. And so I just wanted to mention these top five supplements. Of course, I talk about a lot more things in the book. There are supporting supplements such as probiotics, sea herb, different kinds of homeopathic remedies, essential oils. So these are just some of the things I talk about, and I may go back. If you would like to learn more, or if you found the information useful and would like to learn more, I talk about a lot of things in my book related to staying healthy and sick free. So, what we talked about was under tuning up and boosting your immune system. I talk about protecting your home and workspace, and also creating a healthy and sick free body terrain. So, if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to get a copy of my ebook. You can go to andrewalarcon.com, and that's the picture of my family. But if you go to the right column over here, you'll see a picture of my ebook, or you could go to books over here, New Health for the New Normal. So if you click on that image, it takes you to the same page. And if you scroll down, you can click on the image, and it'll take you to the purchase page where you can download the ebook. Or if you live in the Philippines and you would like to have a local payment method as other than PayPal or credit card, you can click on uh, this part where it says local payment methods are also available. So click on that, and it'll take you to a page where I give you instructions on how to purchase it locally without having to have a PayPal account or a credit card. So that's it. Thank you very much for your time. I truly appreciate you giving time to listen to my videos. I hope that they are useful information for you, and I truly hope that you and your family stay healthy and sick free, not only right now in 2020, but beyond 2020 as well. Thank you very much, and I will talk to you soon. Bye bye.